United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All you, Twyla.
Counselor Albert?
Here.
Counselor Colby? She'll be excused.
Yeah, we need a motion on that.
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
All in favor?
6-0, pass.
You're feeling better, Cass.
And Counselor Garrison? Oops.
He should be coming through the door. It's
All right, we'll give him a few minutes. Counselor La Rochelle?
Here.
Counselor Ward?
Here.
Counselor Lunt?
Here.
And Counselor Fowles.
Here.
So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0.
And we'll circle back when Mr. Garrison joins us, and you can proceed. Next item, Twyla.
Under good news and recognition.
Anybody got anything for tonight?
I will.
Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Maybe it's
No,
the same
go.
thing.
Go.
No, I just want to thank everybody that helped put on the employee recognition this weekend. I know Diane had a lot of work to do with it, and everybody that showed up. I think it was a good event, and hopefully it can build from there. But I think it's always good to see people have a good time and some good food. And the venue was actually really nice. I mean, I don't think anybody went away hungry, without a doubt. So again, thank everybody that put it on. I think it's actually a good event. Hopefully it'll continue and get bigger and stronger.
And my input was ditto. So, yeah.
Agreed.
That was a fun time.
Anybody got anything else? How about next item, Twyla?
There are no public hearings. It would be audience participation or response for agenda items.
You guys are all stacked. You better not have a list of demands. Moving right along.
Next is the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine and would be considered for adoption by one motion with no separate discussion unless the counselor requests an item to be removed. Any item to be removed? Seeing none. Order 2021-208 to approve the municipal accounts payable warrants totaling $205,510. The school payable warrants totaling $403,962.12, and the minutes of September 21, 2021.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Order passed, 5-0. Oh, is it 5-0?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I saw your hand up late, and I'm like, oh, was that a no? Council orders, resolutions, and ordinances. Order 2021-209, MDOT Route 125 project, just the payment acceptance.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll take a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
5-0. Order approved.
Next item, Twyla.
Order 2021-210, the Arumbo Mill project, the public input plan.
Good evening, everybody. Brett Richardson, Economic and Community Development Director, here to talk about additional input for the Arumbo planning process. We had a great LDC meeting last week on Wednesday night. Good turnout. A few of you were in the room. Hopefully, a few others were watching on the town hall streams. But the idea there was to address some input from the community to lay out a process to gather more input around the Arumbo Mill site and how to go about that. And so we laid out a plan that ties together with the market analysis that's going on. You would have seen today, hopefully, if not today, soon, that a consumer survey went out today to get more input as part of the market analysis. We'll have more of that work going on. There'll be interviews by Howard Cohn, the consultant, with key stakeholders in the community, abutting property owners, developers, other economic development folks. And the idea here is to kind of marry together the market analysis work with additional public input for the Arumbo site. The market analysis will add more intelligence, more data that will help inform the community and have a good conversation. And we'll do additional rounds of public meetings, public surveys to make sure the community is well aware of what we're learning through that market analysis and then gain more input to get there, make sure we're making the best decision that benefits the most in our community. And so what we're looking for is an approval of a plan that will unfold over the next 4 to 6 months. Like I said, married together with that market analysis, a couple more surveys. And then in addition to that, to make sure that we're reaching the community and that everybody is aware of this process and has an opportunity to provide input, we're also looking for a $3,000 allocation tonight from the Downtown TIF Fund. And that will essentially help set up a dedicated website that will make a lot of this information very readily accessible. We have a lot of it available on the town website, but in reality it's buried, and if you don't know how to find it easily and you're quick or in a hurry, you're just not going to have a hard time getting to it. So we want to make this readily available. We want to do a direct mailer to make sure that everybody's aware of that and to get this in front of people. And that direct mailer can accomplish two goals, really. One, build awareness around this Rumbo process, but also engage folks generally on simple ways that they can, going forward, be informed on town business. So we're going to look at that direct mailer as a way to accomplish two things and build engagement for the long term. So that's what we're asking for tonight, is an approval of the plan. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, I'm happy to walk through it with you. In addition to that, an allocation of $3,000 to really make it effective.
Make a motion for discussion?
I'll second.
I got the second. All right. You go first for questions then. How's that?
I was just seconding. I don't have questions.
He
I
has-
was there.
Looking
who
for
has
somebody
the
to lead
question?
off.
That's a rare opportunity. We're
Yeah.
going to take it as a win.
So just the site itself, I was here for that meeting, and so I understand the value of that, and so I'm excited to hear you bring it forward. Just from, want to make sure I understand bang for the buck. I know that you are all talking that, 2,500, 3,000 gets it done to get something up and running. Is this something that after this project's completed, we could then repurpose that site for, say, another some sort of, leave it general in nature, but we can put our specific information related to this project now? Then when we get to the back end, be able to kind of strip that out and put in whatever the flavor of the day is for the next project that we're working on, where input from the public would be desired. Does that make sense? Or is that not something that's a one and done?
It
I wanna
does.
understand that.
I heard, and it's a great point. It's a really good question. I heard two different visions of that on that Wednesday night. And one is, if you don't make it super specific and super simple and very readily understandable, then we're going to be almost back to where we're at now, where if folks aren't putting the extra legwork in to really find the answers, they may not. And so we have a gentleman who built the LisbonMoxie.org webpage.
Yep.
He can do that pretty quickly and pretty inexpensively. And so it's a great point you're making. I would advocate that we make it very targeted to Arumbo.
I can live with that. No worries. Thank you, Brett, for clarifying.
Vern? Yep.
Yep, and with that also, I think we heard a lot of discussion about the idea that just a general town website as a whole, you mean, and it seems like it was just yesterday that we redid it, but it's actually been a number of years now, right? And I'm not sure if we can just maybe even take a larger look at that and just see if there's ways to making that website actually a little bit more, I mean, not that I struggle with it, but there's certain times where I go look for agendas, and there's like multiple places, multiple directions to get to a particular spot, but sometimes you do kind of trip over things and have to jump over some hurdles to get where you need to be. So I think it's probably a good eye-awakening to our website in general to maybe I'm not sure how we tune it in. It seems like they change every day on how this technology is, but if there's a way that we can make it more operator-friendly, maybe that'd be a good thing. And that's just a note. It has really nothing to do with.
It's a great point.
But, you would almost think that we could have a website where we could break off, an area and actually do exactly what we're doing without actually making a new site, but actually just making something that's
Existing, yep.
yeah, existing and just an off branch of it. But
You know,
either way, I'm not that up on it. You
No,
probably
it's
have
a good point. I think that I won't belabor it here, but I'll just say that there's some opportunity for overhaul, and I think we heard that out of those discussions. So I would agree with you.
Yeah.
That could be something that you put on the agenda to talk about. What does that look like? We have a partner in technology now. I'm glad to hear that. So that's somebody we could actually throw it at and say, hey, give us thoughts on ease of use. Rate it for us. What's the ease of use? And I think if you do that and ask that business partner to take a look at it, maybe you find some areas to streamline and create efficiencies that weren't there before.
Yep.
That's all I would say.
And the second part of that, I think it was an awesome meeting. There was a number of people here, but I actually heard vastly out there that a lot of people did tune in and actually, had great points of some of the things that people brought up and stuff. With this, Brett, later on, the later on survey that's going to be done once the initial one's done, there was 4 questions. Are we going to be able to look at those a little bit more in depthly before those go out? Because I do agree with Mr. Lunt that maybe it may not have to be as vast as what it is with 4 questions, maybe 3, but that's something that's not being locked in with this particular decision tonight, right? That's more of a fluid thing happening later.
That's correct.
Okay, good.
We wanted to share those to be as forthcoming as
Yep.
possible and
Yep.
to sort of let folks know which direction we're heading in.
Yep.
But I think really good points were made that night, well taken points. And so I think, basically I put that earlier draft on the 22nd out, And then Lisa Ward, the chair of the LDC, put this simpler version here that does not include survey results, or survey questions particularly. But I think those are the general
Yeah, no,
direction,
yeah.
but we'll make sure that we work together, everybody's comfortable. That's really the key takeaway for me at this point, is everybody's comfortable going forward. That'll make it more likely that people can live with the result that we land upon.
Yeah. No, I think it's really going to be important for any way that we actually do it, and I know there's a number of sources that we can actually, even with the initial survey going out, I think you'll see many different entities sharing that through the community, because the more input we get, the better information we'll have back. And I think everybody understands that, I mean, we're spending the money. I mean, the money's going to spend either way, so we just need to get the vast amount of input as we can. And I'm not sure if that's something we can even share out on our front sign, as far as, just as people are driving by, if there's anything we can put out there to try to get people at least directed into that there is a.
I think it's a great point. Yeah. One of the limitations of a sign is how brief you have to be, and I was really happy to hear you just say that, because I think this community is really well connected, and so the folks who do care about it now, if they take the extra step and share this and advocate to their friends. I'll be walking around the downtown area tomorrow. I'll see you. I'm going to drop off a flyer that has a QR code on it, so folks who go up to your front counter, they'll be able to snap that QR code and go right to the survey. So whether it's Positive Change Lisbon, Save the View, anybody else, churches, we'll be reaching out to them, because really the strength is in the network, and by word of mouth we can get good returns.
And we're looking for a vast diversity of citizens too. We're not just looking for savvy people that are, in social media, but we're looking for the people that get their information in all different ways, right? As a mailer or anything. Yep. I know mailer seems very outdated for Norm.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I think that,
but it's one of those things where I think the more people we can reach, it's going to be better for the outcome of the whole project, and not just this project. I think anything moving forward, I think would be a great opportunity for it. But that's what I'll stop there.
I loved hearing you say the strength of the survey is in the network. And to hear that, it's awesome, because QR codes are super cool, super easy to use. But if you are not tech savvy, it might as well be whatever, Greek. But somebody's grandkid can grab that up and snap that. Here you go, Grandpa. All you got to do is start answering the questions now.
That's right.
And, I mean, that's the kind of thing that, like you said, that network piece of things will kind of kick it off. When it becomes that one hurdle, and we can get over that and get the survey in the hands of the people who want to give feedback but feel like there's no avenue for them. That's going to change it, for sure.
And to that point, too, just to be super clear for folks who are listening, we've got contact information out there for folks who do have trouble with it. And so they can reach out to me directly, brichardson@lisbonme.org. My phone number is 207-353-3000, extension 122, and happy to, folks can pop in as well, and we'll help them fill out that survey. And if we start to hear a number of these type of questions, we'll set up ways for folks to participate either by paper that we can then enter in, or we can set up a laptop somewhere and have almost office hours where folks could participate that way. We'll go above and beyond to respond to comments.
And even at the library too, I mean, with the new units down there. I mean, that's
talked to Diane Manno today, so she's aware of it. The flyer's up, and she's paying attention.
That's awesome.
I remember doing some surveys in the past where the library was one place that a lot of paper was used, and there were some here at the town office as well. I had a couple of points regarding paper flyers. Today, I got the survey online, and then this afternoon I picked up the mail, and I got this thing from the town of Lisbon. I thought, boy, that's fast. I wasn't even thinking. Well, it was about the ferry road thing, but it's the same kind of thing. It said town of Lisbon.
Yes.
Huh?
Vote yes.
Yeah.
Infrastructure, sir. Infrastructure.
But anyway, the thing came out, and I thought, it says town of Lisbon all over it. Well, you don't get stuff from town of Lisbon every day. Not like that size. When the tax bill comes, it doesn't look like that. So
It's heavy enough, goes right in a circular file.
To that extent, I think it's worth that. What did you? Never.
Yeah.
The other point is there are various signs in town that have been used in the past. I believe the credit union was used at one point. Also, the school, the red one downtown. You got to sit at a traffic light sometimes and look at things. Not like
I emailed
going
the
by here.
superintendent today, so hopefully we get some support there.
Yeah. So.
That dialer of theirs could be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is I mean, you had mentioned the other night, and maybe what is a good number that we're looking at that would actually meet his needs as far as seeing a good outlook of the community? I mean, is it 40%, 30%, or?
It's interesting you mentioned that. He'd be happy with 500, 700.
Really?
Yeah.
I think we
And,
could.
and I was at an AVCOG meeting, Androscoggin Valley Council of Governments, and they were reviewing a transit study that was Lewiston and Auburn focused, which 50,000 people, and they got 400 responses. They spent $100,000 on that process. Wow. Got 400 surveys, but they said, this is good data. We can work with this.
I'd be disappointed if we don't get 1,000. Let's just push for it.
I think we
I'd like
can,
to.
but
Yeah.
we have to work together to get there.
Oh, absolutely. No,
Yeah.
we've been sharing it pretty hard, so
Yeah,
I
good.
think that's key. I mean,
To that point, I will say this comprehensive, very holistic approach to getting this public feedback, it's fantastic. I know it's probably being very well received from folks who felt like maybe they really didn't get their voices heard. So I think this approach is one that's really strong. And I love the fact that it's got a lot of buy-in from all, everybody wants the feedback, but also realize they get a little skin in the game to get it. So I'm down with that. I think that's great. It's nice to see it from the public side as well as from this side and from the work that you and all of the folks you're working with are doing. So
Good
hats off.
feedback. We're just trying to learn and respond to it, so appreciate it.
Might be able to might learn some lessons from some temporary signs that are out there too.
Yeah.
Got some ideas for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brett, we talked about I think we authorized you to do the parking study as
Yes.
part of this. What's the progress on that?
We've got one quote back. We need two more to award a bid.
Okay.
Yep.
So waiting on quotes.
I'm hoping that we'll get that locked in by the middle of next week.
Okay. I'd like to see where that comes out, because that'll definitely
Yeah.
be a big factor on what we can
Those
do
come
down
together
there.
in a nice way, for
Yes,
sure.
yeah.
Good question.
Any other questions on this topic? All in favor?
5-0,
Yep.
order passed.
Thanks, folks. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks, Brett.
Next, Twyla.
Order 2021-211, the forklift bid award.
Good evening, everyone. Randy
Randy.
Sear, Public Works and Solid Waste Director. Today, I'm recommending that we award a bid to W.D. Matthews. As you've gone through and looked, they're not the cheapest bid, but they are the bid that, these are the people that actually follow the specs and have a wet brake system, they call it. It's an oil-cooled brake system instead of just the drum brakes, which in the past we've had real issues with. And the reason why we went away from that is because the forklifts stored in an area that's very cold. If they get wet and in the wintertime, sometimes we didn't have any brakes on the older machines, according to Marcel back in the day. This last machine had an oil-cooled, called a wet brake system, and it's worked well. So we didn't want to deviate from that at all. The W.D. Matthews did come in second behind Butch Craig and Son, but Butch Craig did not have the brake system which we spec'd out. So the bid total with the trade-in was $30,821, and that's what I'm looking for tonight to replace the forklift.
Before I ask for a recommendation or motion, can I ask a question? Because I have a motion that I'd like to propose for tabling this if we don't know the answer to the question. What would the cost through Butch Craig to actually swap out the brakes to what you're looking for be?
He didn't have a model that had that on it.
So he can't spec what you're looking for?
No.
Okay.
We asked him that.
Okay.
Is there any reason why you didn't spec it? And he said, I didn't have a model that would, in
That
that
was in the
class
bid specs or what
that
you're
was in that
looking
bid
for?
spec. That's
Okay.
correct. And same thing with Alta. They did not,
Yeah,
They
the
didn't do
one
it
that
either.
does is way over the cost.
that's
Exactly.
correct.
That said,
make a motion for discussion.
No second.
questions?
Go ahead.
No, we'll go this way. It'll work better that way.
So my question would be the last forklift that we had, what was life expectancy? What can we expect out of this based off the operational use that you're going to use it
We can
for?
get at least another 20 years out of this thing.
So brand new, 20-year.
Yep.
Okay. That's really all I wanted to hear. Thank you. Sorry.
I'm all good now.
Anybody else?
I'm good.
You answered my question. I just seemed to me that it would be cheaper to go through Butch Craig, but if they don't have the model, they don't have the model. That is what it is.
A lot easier to cost average over 20 years. That's all I'm saying.
All in favor?
Order
Okay,
passed.
thank you very much. Have a
Thank
good night.
you.
Thanks, you too.
Next.
Order 2021-212, Police Cruiser Bid Award.
Good evening. My name is Ryan McGee. I'm the Chief of Police. Tonight in front of you with the cruiser bid, we went through bid process with 8 Ford dealerships for 2 new 2022 Ford Interceptor utilities. It's the same vehicle, same specs that we've been purchasing the last several years. And we've had very good luck with these Fords with very minimal repairs. They've been pretty well made. The bids were received September 29th, and we received 2 out of the 8 bids, or 8 companies. We received 2 bids. Quirk Ford came in at $63,034.76, and Casco Bay Ford came in at $61,506, which was $1,528 less. Casco Bay, that is, less than Quirk. Now that includes the money for the 2 cruisers minus the trade. Quirk actually gave $4,160 for a trade, and Casco Bay gave $4,500 for a trade. We are trading in a 2014 cruiser. It's the oldest one in the fleet. Did speak to one of the department just to see first if it was a cruiser that was needed, and after looking at it and the age of it, it being a cruiser and the hours, was decided that it'd be best to wait till July for the next cruiser that we trade in. So tonight I'm here in front of you asking for permission to move forward on the lowest bid, which fell within all our specs, at Casco Bay Ford for the $61,506, which I'll also add was about $5,500 below what we budgeted for. So,
I'll make the motion.
Need a second?
Second that.
I heard Mark. He usually doesn't speak up, so we got Mark.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just wanted to ask, so all of the equipment from the other vehicles that we're trading in will, meaning the lights, bars, and all the other stuff that you can take off, will go to these new ones that'll come in, or no? It's gonna
no,
be
will
brand new
not.
stuff?
So part of the CIP plan
Yep.
is we have that in the reserve account, and I don't know if you call it quite a reserve account, but it's in an account where it carries over for each year. We have, I can tell you the exact number that we have it. It's $21,000 in change, and it's going to be $20,000 in change to upfit the new cruisers.
Okay.
Because these are the old cruisers, and so we do have that money, which has been planned for over the past several years.
Perfect. That answers the question of how we're going to take care of that retrofit for, not retrofit, but for the upfit, as you put it, for the new cruisers. I just want to understand that the money was there. I was sure it was. Just wanted it for the dot. I wanted them to hear.
Yeah, no, I understand, and the CAP plans used to plan $62,000 a year. When we first planned that out, Chief Hagan and I, when we spoke a while back, it used to be $31,500, and now that's gone up because the cruisers are now costing $33,500. So that's why we're looking at $67,000 this year. Obviously, it came in below the $62,000, but that's because of a trade. Now, if that vehicle went to another department, therefore we would have been short, and I would have been here today not prepared to move forward. So I kind of take that into account. Next year, that puts us in a better place too if another department takes the cruiser, because it's better to plan and come under. So
I like the way you think.
Any other questions?
Yeah, if I may, so we were actually on the budget, which is always good, right? So does that actually money that's left over just go into that account for the
What we'll do
upgrade?
is we'll spend down his budgeted amount, which will put a portion of that to changing everything over, and then he'll have the balance left over in the reserve. So
We'll
it
still have
carries
some
over.
reserve left over, because it
Yeah.
sounded like you were using every penny out of your reserve that you actually had right now, but.
which is
I mean-
planned, and then
Yeah.
next year, because the CIP is 2 cruisers one year,
Yeah.
1 cruiser the next year.
Yeah.
But what I also planned for, which I already explained, I don't want to get into it too much, but what I already explained earlier this year was we added that position. That position's more bodies on the road. Therefore, I sat down and I figured out, okay, how many miles more are we putting on cars, and where can I save mileage? So that's why we're only trading 1 car in. The other car we're not trading, and we're keeping that. That car is going to be used for, we have officers going to training out of town all the time. which is good. You need to invest in your people to reduce liability and also keep them up on their training. But that's been adding mileage on our cruisers, and therefore I can't have marked cars leaving town all the time, which those are the cruisers we need to keep in their prime. And, an inspectable vehicle is an inspectable vehicle. However, a cruiser is completely different than a regular vehicle. Definitely different than an unmarked. Unmarked are not driven as pursuit vehicles. And plus we can use it for undercover surveillance. We can use it to go to trainings.
You have a plan, is what you tell
We have a plan, and I have a plan to keep the mileage down so we can sit, because it's a 10-year plan to really stay below that mileage limit.
Yep. No, and as far as for the dealership, I mean, it's a pretty strong dealership locally, so I mean, that's probably where you get bulk of your repair done possibly anyway, so I mean, it's a
All
good
of it.
fit. So
Casco Bay has been very good to us. The last 3 years that I've been in charge of cruiser maintenance, I call them, you bring it here whenever you want. You can bring it right now, you can bring it tomorrow. And they fit us in, which is great. It doesn't keep us down, it keeps us in business. So.
Yep, absolutely. It's good.
Good stuff.
For the listening dot in the public, the fact that 3-4 years ago, when we were finally able to implement Chief Hagan's plan at the time that Ryan's speaking to here, is it's saving us $6,700 a year just in interest, not actually financing these vehicles. So whatever he's asking associated with this is the best value for the community. My understanding is next year potentially may be the K9 if you have the resources to go there, which is a more expensive car with the upfit for the back cage that's necessary as well.
I've already been looking into grants for that, though.
Yeah, and you talked about that, right?
Could be next year, it could be the following year. It's important to have staff that we have the younger staff, and we're also looking to anybody listening if they want to apply. We're looking for police officers. Have been since beginning of August, but it's important that that's a very serious, important position. It's important to the town.
Position.
It's a dedicated position. We do have members that live in town. We do have members that are definitely interested, but they're younger officers, and that's great that they're interested. And experience is good too. And we do have policies in place for a reason. You do have to have minimum of 3 years on, and certain criteria need to be met, and that's important for liability for the town and for the officer. So,
Thank you for that.
you're welcome.
Anybody else?
You don't have a wet brake system, do you?
No, we don't. They do have a good brake system, I'll tell you that.
One other question, is this, are they able to supply these cruises? Is any within the next
Yes.
4 years? Or?
Yeah, it won't be 4 years, but I hear
Or less.
China has the chips on a boat somewhere, so we should be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's about 120 days
Yeah.
is what we're looking at, which I figured it would
Put
be.
you on the list anyways, if
Yeah.
nothing else, right? So.
Quirk did say in their quote incoming units, but it's not. We can wait the 120 days, not for that kind of money.
Quirk's one of the dealerships that actually buys X number to be able to meet that. That's either 50 or 100 that they buy, knowing that they've got other places in the state associated with that. That reason I reference that is Lewiston just picked up one of the leftovers from the 2020 that was still sitting on their lot for the same reason. It's not getting any less easy to actually pick up police vehicles right now.
Yeah.
I'm glad they decided to go to Ford.
Right.
The other ones had a lot of issues.
Yeah, the only reason they had to go there is we're looking for used sedans. Try to find a used sedan right now that actually unmarked doesn't exist right now. So that was a long story. I digress. Anything else for Chief that's on target?
Good.
All in favor?
Order passed 5-0.
Thank you, sir.
So it's a black two coming in, or orange, or yellow, or...
It's going to be a surprise, Vern.
There you go.
We'll have to wait and see.
You didn't mention that, so I kind of figured we'd...
We'll have to see if they come in April. And I'd also like to just add 2 quick things. I know it's off agenda, but I'm not asking anything if that's okay. Just like to say thank you to the council and the town manager for the appreciation. My wife and kids enjoyed it, and we thank you. And I'd also like to thank everybody for the 9/11 ceremony, that they were able to make it, or that it reached out as well. It's meant a lot to our department and the fire department. And you'll see that some photos that we attach to the upcoming report that we're sending to you. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chief.
Good day.
Next item, Twyla.
Order 2021-213, the solicit bids for a return activated sludge pumps for sewer treatment plant.
Now, these are nowhere near as sexy.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you say it like that, yes.
Steve Avioli with the sewer department. I'm actually here to request, to put out 2 requests for proposals, with one of them being return activated sludge pumps. And I'd like to ask before I get into it, did you want to do those one at a time, or just shoot right through everything?
No, it's fine. I think it's one motion on the agenda. We're
Okay.
good with that.
Perfect. We have 3 return-activated sludge pumps, which are vital to the operation of the wastewater treatment plant. They were installed around 1991. Very reliable pump. The reason why we're looking to replace them, even at this age, we've never operationally had issues with them. We just can't get parts for them anymore. They became obsolete at the beginning of this year. They were added approximately about 1.5 years, 2 years ago to become a capital improvement item. And we're looking to replace them. Fairly expensive pumps, direct replacement and delivered to the treatment plant with everything that it would need, including a base, which we don't know for sure if we will need the base, depending on the newer model, is approximately $20,000 per pump, and there's 3 of them. With that said, a direct replacement, we would plan on installing those ourselves, because it'd be about a day worth of work for each one. If we were to replace those with some other type of make and model, the work involved to install those could be significant, and that could, where we may see a cheaper replacement cost for the pump, the installation could be exorbitant, and that's why I'd like to put in a bid alternate for installation costs also, to get an idea, because when it would come to the electrical, piping, and concrete work that may be involved, that's something we're not prepared to handle on our own for those pumps. And the second RFP would be for the influent and effluent composite samplers, which essentially are vital with the testing that we're required to do per our discharge permit with DEP, which tests all flow coming into the treatment plant and also what's leaving or being discharged from the treatment plant that's ultimately going to the Androscoggin River. And we're required to do testing several days a week on both influent and effluent. These samplers are in the ballpark of about $7,000 a piece for a replacement for what we currently have. So any other model, I'm not sure on what the pricing on those would be. And I'm here in front of you tonight for those because the total cost of the 2 samplers would be over the $10,000.
A motion for discussion?
Right, and that motion is to go out to bid for both the return activated sludge pumps
Yes.
and the composite samplers. Yes, second to that.
I'll second.
You got the second. Go for it.
So the direct fit, I mean, I think I got what you were saying, is so if you use a direct fit pumps, you won't need to actually have an alternative bid for the cement work and stuff, since it's
No.
actually direct replacement.
We would just for comparison's sake, we would keep it across the board and get installation costs from everyone. That's separately from the purchase price of the pumps. And but direct fit, if there's these ones we actually got a quote, and that's what brought us to the point of putting these out to bid. And with it being $20,000 per pump, and there's supposed to be a newer model of what we currently have there.
Yeah.
So we're of the understanding it will be a direct replacement. And like I said, about a day's worth of work to pull one out, put a new one in for each one.
And maybe a crazy question, but since these are still operable, is it practical that you can actually keep one aside as a spare in case we have one go down? You can actually put it in while the other one's being repaired? I mean, if it's a direct fit, I mean, I'm just curious if that's
Yes.
a practical scenario or not. But
That's absolutely practical. That's one of the plans we have is, we have 3 pumps. We typically would run 2 at a time, so we always would typically have a spare as it is.
Yeah.
And currently one of them is down because we can't get parts for it. And it's the main impellers is what's moving all the fluids. And when you could get impellers, they're about $4,000 to $5,000 a piece, and we can't find them anymore. Manufacturer cannot locate them worldwide.
And if you have a failure now, you're in big trouble. Is that right?
No, yeah, we would be down to 1 right now, and that's one reason why we're here, and we got to put it to go in this direction. But it is, we can run on 1. That pump, of course, is going to work a little harder, and but typically it is 2.
what's the time frame on even if you would order them today? I mean, is that one of those non-stock, in the future type of purchases? Or?
That's a question I don't think I can answer right now because with our current project at the treatment plant and with Davis Street Pump Station, there were parts that were ordered in winter of last year that still haven't been received.
Yeah.
So it is currently an unknown for the lead time for these.
But it is something we need to figure out sooner than later,
Yes.
because no matter what we do, it's not going to get any shorter.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm just going to float this because I have to.
Yes.
Catastrophic failure, you have no pumps now. Everything's dead, and we have no parts, no way. What do we
We
do?
actually have a sludge feed pump and a waste-activated sludge pump that could fill that role in the short term.
I just-
There is a backup, but it's not an ideal backup.
I had no doubt in my mind you had something there. I just wanted to hear it out loud, that's all, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Got a plan.
Am I correct in assuming that this original setup for this system was built for a time when the mills were active?
It's actually been upgraded. This building was built in 1990.
Mhm.
So yes, the mills were active at the time. But what these pumps do is they return through the treatment process. Everything comes into the treatment plant. We have the aeration tank where we aerate everything. Everything that's aerated gets sent to a clarifier, which is a settling tank. All the solids that are settled, we return approximately 70 to 80% of that flow, essentially what the flow is through the treatment plant. And those solids get returned back to the aeration tank. And that's actually where the magic happens in wastewater treatment. Because we are breeding bacteria, good bacteria, in those clarifiers. We're returning it to the aeration tank, and that's what's treating the influent coming into the plant.
Okay,
But
nice. I'm not sure I understood all
I
that.
love it when Steve drops knowledge about how the water goes around, man.
and
Still going around.
And even with the mills not there, that process has to stay the same in order for the treatment plant to run properly.
Use the word flow.
Man, right?
He's what he did.
I,
Go for it.
MC.
One of the questions, something that's actually a discussion we had quite some time ago is old Maiden Electronics actually used to push quite a bit through, and they got a permit to actually be able to drop that back into the river. Did that actually change the flow or actually the amount of material you're using or anything at all? I mean, it was a significant amount of water they were pushing through, so.
They actually do still send everything to the treatment plant.
They
They
do.
have a discharge permit for the river. For them, it's easier to send it to us and pay the town to treat it.
Okay, because from that meeting, it almost seemed like they were getting permission to be able to do it to save the funds. But I'm glad if it works for both entities, because that would be quite a change in your amount of water coming through, right?
It's about in the ballpark of 70, 80 gallons per minute, constant 24 hours a day.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. So they got that just as an emergency backup, that permission, so if they had to, they could dump it through the river without being penalized. I mean,
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, they're almost required to do that. If we ever had an operational issue where we could no longer take that flow, they can't just shut that place down, that operation down. They would have to have a place to discharge it. And if they were to send it to the river without that permit in place through the DEP,
Yep.
that would be
bad.
not very good for them.
It'd be bad. Good. Okay, I was just curious. I know that they had talked about that, and I wasn't sure how that affected us. That's all.
Herculean-sized frogs after that, too.
Yeah,
Big
huge.
ones, big ones.
They glow in the
Heavy
dark
ones.
ones.
Glow in the-
Heavy ones.
exactly.
All in favor?
Order passed 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Order 2021-214 to amend Appendix C, the fee schedule, to add the Freedom of Access copy fee of 10 cents per copy if it's related to an FOA request.
I'll make a motion.
Second. And is there a cap on the total fee, or is it just per page?
10 cents per
What?
page.
What prompted that to show up?
Yeah.
You're the second, or who seconded it?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. We were just notified that the
Yeah.
legislature took it up, and that
Oh.
a new bill passed, and so, hey, by the way,
Okay.
Somebody sued, it went through Congress. Downfall.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Somebody got hit.
Are we bound to follow it?
it shouldn't affect much. It's only FOA requests.
Yeah.
So
But are
we
we bound,
mainly
are we
have-
bound to follow it?
Technically, yes.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Technically, yes.
Well, you plan to put-
No,
ask
what
for
somebody
a
did, if
I
somebody drew the
don't,
line
I
in the
don't think,
sand.
I think anytime you try to, FOA, a FOIA request is try to make it so people can get that information. And now 10 cents is not prohibited, so I don't want to, but it's a slippery slope. When does that come to a point where, and that's all I'm thinking about, that's the only reason I'm talking about it right now.
Right.
What happens when they make it $1 a page and somebody wants a 300-page budget report because it's going to have, they need to go through the comprehensives. I get what you're saying, and most people are technologically savvy, but FOIA requests, this feels prohibitive to me, and I'll leave it at that. It's just my own personal, it's the start of something I feel could be very, very much, if we can release it electronically
I was just wondering, is that a possibility?
Yeah.
Do you actually give reports?
We were
electronically?
charging 50 cents.
for electronic copies?
No,
No, no,
free
no.
electronic
Physical.
copies.
Electronic copies are free, but
Good.
we have to make a copy, it's 50 cents.
You just said the magic word to me. If somebody wants a copy, if I said I wanted the entire budget report, not that I would, but just saying if I wanted that whole thing, and because there was, or I wanted a dump of all of Alan's phone records
Right.
for the last 12 months, I could get that as long electronically if I wanted to.
For free, yeah.
Probably not.
We have it in an electronic version,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
But you will pay, what's
Per
the
paper.
first hour
Right.
in the research fee?
Yep.
$15 per hour?
First hour,
That makes
15
perfect
after,
sense.
Yeah.
per hour.
Per hour, and you need to agree to what they estimate for that cost to get what you're looking for before they actually are obligated to provide it.
I think
Right.
that's perfectly fair.
And at $15 an hour, which doesn't even cover minimum wage,
Yeah.
it's laughable.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's fine. No, it's great.
Yeah.
It's working out, though.
It's working.
All in favor?
Something. Oh, yes, 5-0? Yeah, it's a fee schedule, so roll call is optional.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're
It
good.
was
We don't need to do a roll call,
Okay.
but we're good. Order 2021-215, this is to adopt a main PERS provision, 5 MRS, Section 18252C, Rule Chapter 803, which is Public Law 2021, Chapter 286. And then this would be a roll call optional, too. if you
Oh, this is the opt-in.
want it.
So the Maine State Retirement System just did a rule change, and the new law will become effective once the town's plan, with the town, only if we adopt it through a formal action of the town council, which is what you're doing tonight. So the provisions of the new law permits any PLD employee who declined membership in the plan when they were hired. Currently, or before the new rule, if you decline membership, you could never get into the system after that. You have to decide yay or nay. So one and done. So now they've changed that so that those employees have another opportunity to join the plan, and they have to do it by November 1st. That's their cutoff date. And the date will only be available for any employee that has more than 5 years.
Just a one-time thing.
It
Yeah.
seems really strange.
Yeah, so,
Kinda-
and then next year,
A little bit of cash influx.
then it also allows the PLD employees to have an annual open enrollment opportunity during their first 5 years of employment, beginning in 2022. So the first one for this year, for November 1st, is anybody who has the 5 years in that declined.
Yeah.
And then starting next year, it's anybody within that 5 year, and it's going to be annual thereafter. So at least you have another chance. So this is a good thing. So what you need to do is to adopt the main PERS provision, and then authorize me to sign the agreement with the retirement system.
I make that motion.
Second.
Any other discussion on that topic?
No.
I think it was
No, she said it was
Optional.
And it's optional.
I heard
It's up to you.
optional.
Oh,
It's
I
optional.
didn't hear
Yeah.
that.
Roll call to me usually says 2 votes. I make it all in
I
one.
need to know, because I roll call with the right and I vote the other way with the left.
5-0, yay.
I heard option.
Option passed. Order passed, 5-0. Next is Order 2021-216 to amend Part 1, Chapter 12, Section 12-3, Ethics Panel. This is a first reading, and this would require a roll call vote.
See?
I knew that.
All right.
It's a little different. We're going to send one of those to main PERS, and we're going to keep one in the council
Okay.
board. That's why we want to.
Who wants to frame this one?
I will.
Please.
I brought it up and asked that it be reviewed by Dan. He added some extra steps in it, but the point was to add some capability of expansion in the ethics committee without violating the intent. And so by excluding those people that are paid on committees, you don't have any conflict issues or those kind of conflict issues there. He added wording that said, you're expected to abstain from voting on something that would directly involve you or be perceived to involve you in a conflict. So it went through that way. one of the thoughts that I had before was, how do we get some people who otherwise would be qualified and may have been appointed to be sworn in as eligible? And that was what made me think about doing that.
And if council hasn't remembered, we appointed somebody at our last meeting that we found out because of it, he actually was ineligible associate of this, so this would fix that issue moving forward.
And remains ineligible.
Right.
Yeah.
He is still permanent, ineligible.
Yeah, because he sits on a committee.
Yes,
That's compensated.
Yeah.
correct.
But this would change that. If he wasn't on a committee that wasn't compensated,
Right.
he'd be able to serve on the
Yeah,
other.
but I mean, if we still, he's going to be ineligible regardless if we move
Right,
forward
right,
tonight.
exactly.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm hearing.
That's what
For now.
sparked a review to be
Yeah,
able to,
yeah.
what can we do to increase who could be eligible, is where I was going with that.
So
Yeah,
maybe-
and it's pretty well known that there seems to be a set group of people that volunteer to be on committees and things. It's a very small group to begin with, so that was the intent.
As long as you're not a paid employee of the
Right.
town, you're eligible to serve on the ethics committee.
Right.
I could serve on the finance committee
Mm-hmm.
and be on the ethics committee.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
I have a second for his motion.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion?
Actually, just one.
Oh,
Is
roll
there-
call, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any other positions in town that are limited to that? I mean, I know we've run into this a couple different times as far as on, I mean, is there any other circumstances that this would actually play a role also?
What do you mean, were they not
I mean,
eligible?
just, I mean,
When I saw the language associated with the ethics, I thought the same thing. Is it because of the nature of the committee?
Yeah.
Or was it just something that was hanging over from a
For all-
previous
for
version?
all, yeah.
And I didn't know the answer, but it seemed to me that it was
Strictly
related to the ethics
ethics.
specifically.
Yes.
okay. That's fine. I was just curious if there was other
Right.
categories this
I think
would fit into.
only the town council is you can't serve on, you can't be on the council and being paid for something or be on another committee at the same time, but, I mean, I don't think any other committee would.
You have to be a federal employee. to be able to do that.
Right, yes. You could be a town employee and be on,
No, it's good.
And the town council has a one-year restriction.
right, but you could be on the planning board and work for the town at the same time, but you couldn't be on the council and work for the town.
Right.
But yeah, I did say 1 year.
Roll call, all right?
Do it
Roll
all.
call.
Ready?
Yep.
Counselor Fellows,
Yes.
Counselor Garrison, let's see, Colby, let's go with Counselor Lunt,
Yes.
Counselor Ward,
Yes.
Counselor LaRochelle,
Yes.
and Counselor Albert.
Yes.
5 yeas, 0 nays, order passed. So we'll put a public hearing out, a notice for that, and put it on your next agenda for a second reading.
Committee reports, school?
Pool testing is doing what it's intended to do, although there is, in this area right now, there's an uptick, but we're starting to see it go the other way for COVID. Although we're still in person, so I'll take that as a win right now for our staff and for everything that they're doing to keep that going, so.
It'll be a stronger school once this whole program's over with, right?
Well, just the stuff that's come out of it. The fact that they had no plan for remote learning going into that thing last year in the spring, and now this year, and we'll never have a snow day again. Sorry, kids.
Planning board.
The planning board did not meet at their last meeting, did not have a last meeting, and the next one is scheduled for next week, and I haven't figured out what they're covering yet.
LDC.
That's not Council Albert, it's me.
I know, we need to change that.
I think we've
Oh,
pretty much
okay.
covered that
that
in the
then.
presentation that Brett did and with the comments that we made, so I don't have anything to add other than that.
Okay. Conservation hasn't met yet. You'll have one for the next meeting. Recreation?
The Graziano's Park, if you have not noticed, it's getting close to completion. The only piece of it that won't be done this year is a gazebo, which I know Mark had mentioned. The plan will be to kind of revisit that in the springtime, hoping that contractors are available and that materials rates might be a little bit more favorable. So aside from that, that looks pretty darn good. Then all the programs, of course, are going swimmingly for all the fall sports. So.
County, I would start by telling you that I missed something that I was re-educated at our meeting 2 ago at the county level I reported that we were looking at about a 3.6% increase. That's true if you're looking strictly at the expenses. The net increase to the county in the revenues net budget was 12.4%. Mark and I were kicked into high gear, and Lisbon was quite represented last Wednesday. We cut their budget to 5.7% associated with that, which equates to that night was $710,000 we net reduction off their budget, either from expenses, mostly increase in revenues that were the problem side of the equation. So that goes before the commissioners at their public hearing on the 20th. So I look at that. I have to say I was channeling you, Fern, because one of the best ways to be able to explain it to a group of laymen, which that group is, not knowing they could be, there's a lot of public citizens, not representatives on their board is what I meant. The fact that your analogy that what's the percentage not turning a screw, keeping the doors open, that actually increases any given year, we know it here that it's somewhere between 3 and 5%. A 5.7% increase over a 2-year period of time, I think is fair, because that's an average of 3, and they did not have an increase last year, just like the rest of us through COVID. So that said, we set a goal for the night, and I was happy to report that we actually got there.
Thank you for representing us.
What's driving that is that the county revenues were down 18% last year due to COVID. A lot of that was in the jail and the sheriff's department.
Alan, they're not going to be sad to see you go.
No, I think that was heard several times that night, actually. But
what they don't understand is they actually, I mean, like everybody else, they actually got money to offset that from like the CARES.
Right. The trouble is that
they don't calculate that.
Right, because you can't actually use the money directly to offset lost revenue, even though it's called lost revenue funds. You have to appropriate it as like a spending expense, which would be like, okay, let's remove patrol officers and put in the federal money there, and then the people involved are all very worried about going to create this perception that our budget goes up 25% next year, when it was really we just don't have that federal money anymore. So we did find a way to put a lot of it in there, and that's where a lot of that reduction comes from, actually getting them to spend that federal money.
It's going to be used somewhere.
Right. They wanted to keep it, for building expenses in the future or something. And we're thinking, we have a 12% tax hike. It's not really fair to say, let's put 12% in the bank and just tax the people for that is not reasonable.
Yeah,
So
one of the perceptions of county budget is what value is added at the county level that's necessary to warrant $20 million. That's the criticism they hear on a regular basis, and one of the concerns that we were vocal about all through this process is they were not even going to talk about ARPA funds. They weren't going to even mention what $20 million were actually going to be spent on. And all due respect, I lost my shit, because the fact is, if you have on the county budget $11,300 worth of FEMA money as a grant, how can you ignore a $20 million grant and actually straight face this? It just doesn't make sense to me. So every time we brought it up, and Mr. Crowell from Auburn, great respect for that man in that regard, is that you just reading the regs of what's acceptable for the use of ARPA funds is very different than the lost revenues that Mark's talking about.
There's two different funds, and it's super confusing.
Yeah. I think most communities, whether it's municipal or school, not this year, not next year, but 4 or 5 years into this, will look back to see if those funds were used properly. I mean, and I'm not saying that's an improper use, but when you actually, even like a school system like ours, municipality, actually have that amount of money that's spent, I mean, in a very short period of time, because there wasn't a whole lot of time. It wasn't like there's years of planning for it. I mean, you just hope that actually plays dividends down the road. It was spent wisely, so it was investing money, I mean, into infrastructure that you would have to do later on. So, It wasn't just a short-term fix, it was actually a long-term investment to drop down your later expenses, you mean, so.
Agreed.
Taylor.
Again,
And
Tale of two cities here when you think about it. I think about, and I'll use our own school because I got zero problem with highlighting some of the things they think they did very well. They looked at the capital improvement plan on the projects they had that they were working on. They found ways to go after things that were not only going to create energy savings inside of the schools, but projects they could finish off that would pay immediate dividends. And then also down the line on the budget, they fall off and they make way to create new projects in the CIP. That, fast forward to other states who are talking about using that money to build jails. Which ones? I think if you put more money in the ones to educate people, you're probably not going to need as much money to build more jails. That's just the way I'm thinking about it. But
the only thing we're fortunate about in the fact, it being in this state is county actually, jails fall into that equation. So one of the benefits associated with this windfall that's coming out of it are some pretty sizable savings from infrastructure, specifically with HVAC updates to an aging building that's turn of the century, and our jail system, to use your point, because they don't have the other options to spend that kind of cash on. What's a little bit odd for me is listening to a couple of different things. The first being the fact is $20 million for Androscoggin County. Lisbon drops off to 970,000.
Yeah, it was over 900, yeah, I know.
There's a steep drop there. And the fact is, we're number 3 in the county associated with that. The other soundbite that I should never watch the news. The fact is, I don't know if it's Lester Holt personally or if it's just the news. To hear the soundbite last night on the news is that only 2% of this funds in the entire country have been spent.
Well,
It's 4 years to be able to do this. And when you're constantly saying that you better make sure what you're using the funds are in the regs or you will be paying it back, what are you expecting?
Well, not to mention the fact that they're just trying to put the thing together.
You don't have any rules.
Right.
You don't have any rules. So I would almost say that the lion's share of that 2% that's actually been spent is already somebody that had a plan that was already HVAC in the works, or it was all of the funding for
It's a shovel-ready project, right?
It was either shovel ready or they paid the combat pay that everybody because in county it was a $500,000 payout in that regard. We can target that one item. That was a decision they made that is radically different than a lot of the other communities associated with that. But realistically speaking, it's each board making their own representation, and it's just it's a number. That number sticks. 7 people voted in. It moves forward, and suddenly it's $500,000. So those kinds of things. But my point being is, they weren't even going to breathe a word of that topic. One of the topics that never came out in this budget discussion, we're aware of it because I brought it up to you guys, is there no discussion associated with county consolidation of the 911 systems.
I was going to ask you about that.
Because the fact is, I said it here. I believe it's going to die on the vine because the small communities can't pick up the savings of the communities that are going to save. And we're not even sure we're going to do it. Won't. You can't justify why it's suddenly $250,000 on a small town's budget for an increase. So there were a lot of topics there that it played out. So the fact is, we were very vocal through this last budget cycle because, again, it was an awareness for me sitting through the commissioner's public hearing. They didn't cut a nickel. And the fact is, it was a misunderstanding from at least our commissioner. The fact is, I thought we were going to have another meeting to be able to get into this, and when it fell on deaf ears, and the fact is, and I'm looking at a 12.4%, this is completely insane. Completely insane. I mean, we went, what was it? Our increase, because our valuation decreased less than others increased last year, we're looking at 52 with the 12.4, so we're just over 20 grand is the increase this year, which is probably where we landed last year because our valuation went up with even a 0% increase. We had an increase because our valuation went up higher.
That's if the commission is actually
Endorse.
That's
true.
Endorse. But the noise we've successfully made since the stalemate on the lawsuit, the commissioners are now listening. I will say that it's a better, because all due respect, you guys have met me. They don't want to deal with me any more than some people around here, so.
You can still be appointed even. You don't have to be a counselor
Yeah, that was already
beyond
pointed
that.
out to me.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Stop that noise, stop that.
Is that thing we're going to vote on tonight, or is that?
Yeah.
No, just
No, I'm just saying.
information.
for
I
But,
got where you're going
commissioners.
with that. Yeah.
Put that on the last meeting that we have here, and we'll get that one done.
Yeah,
Thank you, Alan and Mark.
If you're concerned at all about that 12% still being there, it might be a good idea to reach out to your county commissioner and say, I really can't afford 12% increase. So
I'll threaten him. I'll send Alan back. Forget
Can
it.
you actually, is it worth for our municipality to actually send a
You could send something to Isaiah.
yeah,
I mean,
Because
Yeah.
probably would be a good
he's in that camp.
yeah.
If you've not met that man, he is the one that actually wants to come out swinging any time. The fact
Yes,
is,
he does.
he struggles to actually get a second for most of his stuff because, I mean, all due respect, he's very dialed in on the fiscal dollars. It's what other items actually come into play that ultimately end up in print that actually his message gets lost.
I mean, I would like to see
Yeah.
our town actually send
Send something to Mr. Larry.
and CC the other communities around us, let them know, because they may not actually be getting as much information as we are, so.
Right.
Can
They can reach out to
who?
their
Yeah.
commissioners.
Can you
to-
do that for us, Diane?
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting this information tonight, we're councils in the community, and we wouldn't
Yep.
have actually had this information if you
That
would
would
be
give
sharing
him-
it, so.
That would give him something to read in front of the rest of them,
Yeah,
too.
exactly, yep.
Lewiston, Auburn, and Lisbon are on board because it was the three-sided crew. We had Alicia Ray as our chair representing Lewiston. You had Mr. Crowell, who's town manager in Auburn, and us that were driving the charge. The
Well, I
fact
haven't
that
read anything in any paper about a potential 12%
I know
increase.
Yeah,
there's
'cause
just
they're
covered
not gonna-
stuff.
No,
It's
that-
really
that-
bizarre
You,
that it's
you,
like
you don't,
flies
yeah,
under the radar.
you don't get the 12% increase without having a few friends that keep that nice and quiet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
Yes,
thank
and
you,
the
we
commissioners
appreciate
have
that,
voted, yeah,
and
so.
anything we can send out to actually share with communities around us, I think would be good.
Yep.
And, because we know, as you folks know, if even something being able to be written or spoken to that night would be better than just,
I had
Help
another
represent us.
soundbite too, Fern, the fact that you've heard it from us the last 2 years, the cost of the dispatching services associated with that through the county. And the fact that Mr. Crowell brought it up again last meeting is the fact that if we were to accept that this was the third year of that arrangement, their formula that actually picked the pockets of Lisbon to rate everybody to bring them to county, they need to look at what that service is on a per diem cost for everybody that's in the community that's driving these, because all in, they are a couple $100,000 on the revenue side that had a 22% decrease. Look there, when you've added 4 times the cost of IT and you haven't increased the budget on these at all.
yeah, no doubt.
So
It's just,
Mr. Crowell is championing that piece of it.
Would you say you
Always
made a
has.
$150,000 decrease?
No, $710,000.
710,000? Okay.
$710,000.
Okay. And that's what you want the commissioners to,
Some of that was in the paper.
Yeah, that article was, I texted you the next morning. Is that
Yeah.
for once I was quoted direct and it was accurate.
Wow.
So if
Wow. Put it on with the real Sun
yeah,
Journal.
yeah.
Yeah,
Something's not right there.
I got a rather direct response from you the next morning, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, good. I
He was
appreciate that.
because he was funny because it was specifically we had a plan going into this because I had talked to the chair. The fact that, wait a minute, we can't just go through the agenda here because it's going to look like we're targeting the jail and the sheriff's department, which is not the case. But we need to find out. We've cut $100,000 and none of it is binding. At that point, we were at $23,000 that was binding, which is an 11 majority vote to send a message to the commissioners that this is bullshit. We need it to stick. So what we need to find out is what's everybody's palette. I came up with 6%, and I told them it's $106,000 per percent to actually get reductions. So we need to have in excess of $700,000 cut to get to the 6% that I'm talking about. The first thing we did is actually go back and ratify the 10 items that we had made reductions that didn't have the binding votes because the first night Mark couldn't make it, and there were 2. We only had a 9-0. So the fact is, we ratified 100,000, and we cut the additional 600,000 out of the budget that night. The fact is, you guys have seen my one-man hostage situations, and the fact is, it was what he said. It's what he said, because I don't want to deal with him. And I'm good with it, because we can't afford that kind of increase every year.
Yep, and that I do want to clarify that 700,000 in cuts is mostly it's using the federal money and increasing revenues. We're not cutting staff positions. There's no service cuts or anything.
Agreed.
So we reduced the budget by 700,000 without cutting staff or reducing services.
But basically finding ways to use the federal funds.
Exactly, finding ways to use those federal funds was a big part of it that they just wanted to leave sit in the bank with no use. So
$150,000.
there's no downside to the public to this.
Right.
And with the hopes, the idea that last year was just an unusual year, that the revenues were low because of the situation that presenting the extra money this year.
Right. If it continues on in the future, we may have to make more permanent cuts to expenditures, but that's for the future.
Library, sir.
Nothing new to report.
Water?
The Water Commission meets next Wednesday. I will be gone, so if any of you would like to volunteer at 5:30 in the afternoon and meet the new director and whatever, we'll find out what they have to say.
Okay. Finance?
So they had a meeting on the 28th last week, and they put a bow on all of the different topics regarding waste management, and we will be getting that presentation from them next week here. So
good.
Strap in. Should be very exciting and informative.
Meeting.
Next meeting.
Meeting.
Yep.
Town manager.
Just one thing, Thanksgiving basket program, I'm working on that. I'm getting some good donations coming in, and if you know of any needy families that need a basket, please let me know their names and where they live, and I'll make sure that they get one this year.
Thank you. Is that information on our website or marquee that maybe help you get donations from community?
I sent out letters to all the businesses
Okay.
for donations,
Okay.
so I'm good there.
Perfect.
And the Food City, I think, is doing a roundup for us again as well.
Yep.
Jeremy, do we actually work with our food pantry in the town to actually just get names of, where do we usually get the names of the people?
I get most of them from the school,
from the school.
and then also from what I do for general assistance.
Okay.
If someone does have a recommendation, they can actually forward it.
They can, yep.
Okay. Yep.
Next item, Twyla.
As appointments, Order 2021-217 to appoint an election clerk. Eric McTevier has volunteered to work, so we thought if you appoint him, he'd be an election clerk for 2 years. If I just appoint him, it's only per election. So we want to keep him
So
around.
we got him on the hooks for 2
we
years.
do.
I like
we do.
I like your style. You see that? That's a loophole.
I'll make a motion.
I take the
Thank
second
you.
if you could.
I'll second.
I got the second. All in favor?
Order passed 5-0.
Thank you, Eric. Yeah.
Council communications. Anybody?
I think we touched on
I think
Go
I
with
said
everything,
too much. There's no audience, so I'm not skipping the item. I'm moving forward to the red chairs. Executive session. We have one,
yes,
too.
you do.
Was there going to be any other items? There's going to be no action on
No.
this. It's just brief informational.
Yep.
Okay.
What's the
Order
section?
2021-218 to go into executive session per 1 MRSA, Section 405-6A, Personnel Matters.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All
Third.
in favor?
Let's go, Dawn.
4-0.
So, Twyla, you're dismissed for the night. We'll just give you through Diane, who made the motion, and timeout.
I'll turn out.
Thank you.
Thank you and good night.
This should be extremely brief. It's informational.
I appreciate that because I'm going to fall asleep in my chair.
It's not even 9 o'clock yet, bud.
Yeah, Maggie's not been sleeping very well. I had to go get her at school